Here are 5 Yankees trade deadline targets. Now, before I get into my list, there are a few players on here that are on teams that are competing currently for a playoff spot. They're still very much in it. However, when making a list like this, you kind of have to see and speculate even, will this team keep it up? Do you think they're going to be there by the deadline? Do you think they're going to be in it by the deadline? And if that answer is no, that's when these players, 3 out of the 5 of them, become available. But let's go over the first name on this list. And the one name that I have is a pretty big one. You might have seen him in the thumbnail. We're going to go over what it would take to get him in just a few moments. But let's start off with Amed Rosario. Rosario this year for the Nationals, hitting .302 with 3 home runs, 13 RBI, a .799 OPS, and a .127 OPS plus. Before last year, the Yankees were very much interested in Rosario. They were going to sign him to a contract, but he decided to sign with the Tampa Bay Rays because he thought he would get more playing time over there. And he did. He hit over 300. He ended up getting traded to the Dodgers, but then I believe the Dodgers ended up DFAing him shortly after that, and he ended up being claimed on waivers by the Reds. But so far this season for Amed, he's playing well, and as of late, he's been playing really, really well, hitting over .302. If I'm the Yankees, and if he's available, you have to be interested in him, especially since you're trying to find a right-handed bat who could play third or second base. He could play both. He could play shortstop. He could play in the outfield. So if I'm the Yankees and Rosario were to become available, I would be very much interested in him. And depending on what the market says, because we all know from last year, the market was pretty insane. We saw the haul that the Padres had to trade for Tanner Scott for a rental relief pitcher. We saw the haul they had to trade in order to go and get him. So I'm not sure if Rosario's value, if he continues to hit 300 by the deadline, I'm not sure how high his value will be then. But as of right now, it wouldn't take too much to go and get him. It would probably take maybe a major league reliever. It could take a minor league starting pitcher, or maybe a young infielder like Oswald Peraza or Yorbeat Bibas. It's as of right now, it won't take too much to get Rosario, but as we learned from last year, the market goes insane towards the deadline, and these players become a lot more valuable to these teams. So the value for Rosario, especially if he continues to hit the way he's hitting, which that might be a tall task, he might cost you. No, I'm not saying Spencer Jones, but I'm saying a little more than what he would cost you now. So another name, Willie Castro. Castro this year, playing for the Twins. The Twins are 5 out behind the Tigers. I believe they're in second place. If the Twins are out of it, they're in front of the Guardians and the Royals. I could see them kind of going down, and then that would make Willie Castro available. Castro this year hitting .255, 6 home runs, a .783 OPS, and a .119 OPS plus. He could basically play everywhere, Castro. He's a switch hitter. He could play second, short, third, the outfield. He could play anywhere you need him. And he's a free agent at the end of the year. But this depends on if the Twins are going to be in it or not towards the deadline. And also, too, like I said, the value for Castro right now, a minor league starting pitcher like Gage Zeal, Elijah Dunham, or Bibas, if you'd rather move him for Castro, that would get it done as of right now. But as I said, there is the trade deadline tax that does exist. We saw that last year. So maybe it would cost you a little more to go and get Castro at that point. But as of right now, you could get him for a very reasonable package. But the Twins are still in it. So why would the Twins trade him at this point? Another name. He's on a team. He's on the Cardinals. The Cardinals are 5 games out of first place behind the Cubs. I'm talking about Ryan Helley. Helley this year for the Cardinals has a 3.27 ERA and 22 appearances, 13 saves, 22 innings pitched, 23 strikeouts with a 1.5 whip. What I think, if the Yankees flirted with this idea And depending on how long Luke Weaver is going to be out for, I could see, and if the Cardinals lose more and more and fall back more and more in the standings, I could see the Yankees making that phone call saying, hey, is Helley available as a free agent at the end of the year? Is he available? And if he is available, I think you have to go and try to get him. Now, like I said earlier on, with Tanner Scott last year, the Padres traded a bunch to get him, and Helley isn't pitching as well as Scott did last year for the Marlins. He's not. But he's still having a solid season, 3.27 ERA, 13 saves. His whip is a little too high for my taste, but his career whip is 1.127, which is much better than his whip now. So, in my opinion, I think Helley would be more than worth it, and especially if Weaver, if you're not sure how much time Weaver is going to miss, I would probably call St. Louis up soon and see if Helley could be potentially available. But as I said, what complicates this is that St. Louis is like 5 games out of first place. So they could very well make the postseason. But I think guys like Helley, maybe even Donovan, who does have team control, they could potentially become available. Now, I won't say Donovan's name because I don't think that's a realistic target as of right now. But because I already have one that's kind of not realistic. But firstly, we have to talk about a starting pitcher. Now, if you want to shore up this rotation even more, I'm talking about Tomoyuki Sugano from the Baltimore Orioles. This guy's having a tremendous year. 35 years old. It was a great pitcher in Japan. 35 years old this year. Has a 3.04 ERA and 12 starts. 71 innings pitched. 40 strikeouts. So he's a contact pitcher, but his whip, a 1.042. That's excellent. If the Orioles were to make him available, the Yankees may have to pay the Yankees tax, especially within the division. But if he were to become available, he's a guy that I would call the Orioles up and say, hey, listen, I want him. What would it take to get him? Like I said, you might pay the Yankees tax if you want Sugano. Now, depending on where the Orioles are, which they're in last place, they're one of the worst teams in baseball at this point. They could probably get a lot, especially if Sugano's pitching well. They could probably get a lot towards that deadline. So that's where it gets a little fishy and a little complicated, if you will. But he's a guy, if he were to become available, that I would 1,000% target. Now, finally, let's get to this big blockbuster name, which is he available right now? Probably not. But number one, he's been struggling. And number two, this team is in last place, and the Yankees do have some prospects that they could potentially move to go and get this guy if he were to become available. And even if he's not available, I think it's more than worth it for the Yankees to go and call him up, to call the A's up and say, hey, what do you want for Mason Miller? Now, Miller this year in 21 appearances, 12 saves, 20 in 2/3 innings pitched, 37 strikeouts, has a 1.306 whip with a 5.23 ERA. He hasn't been himself lately, and maybe Matt Blake could fix him. We're hoping he could fix Devin Williams. We're praying he could. But maybe with Mason Miller, he could bring him over here. High-octane guy, high-velo guy. Mason Miller, great swing and miss stuff. Has a lot of control. He's not a free agent until 2030. So it's not like it wouldn't cost you a lot. He may cost you a decent haul. Not a George Lombard kind of haul. No, we're staying away from that. But we also have to realize this too. Mason Miller is a relief pitcher. They're very sporadic, very inconsistent. So what his value was last year is different from what it is right now. And right now, it isn't as high as it was because he's struggling mightily. So what would it take for the Yankees to go and get a guy like Mason Miller? You could get cute with it and offer them a starting pitcher like Clark Schmidt. But if you don't want to do that, Clark Schmidt and probably Roderick Arias, you're more so looking at a package of Spencer Jones, who's having a really good year down there in Double-A. He did suffer through an injury, but he came back and he's hitting pretty well. Roderick Arias, a guy who was on the IL. I'm not too sure what his health status is right now. But Spencer Jones, Roderick Arias, and starting pitcher Brock Selvage. That's what it would take to go and get Mason Miller. Now, for those of you who love Spencer Jones and who think, hey, the Yankees should teach Spencer Jones first base, I agree with you 1,000%. The fact of the matter is they haven't done that. And being that they haven't done that, I don't think that's their plan for him. It's center field. That's why Dominguez isn't left. But if you go out and you get Kyle Tucker this offseason, that just makes Spencer Jones more expendable. And Spencer Jones's value did go down a tiny bit. He's no longer a top 100 prospect. So you kind of have to cash in on what you could cash in on him right now if this offseason you do plan on trading for Kyle Tucker. And I think Mason Miller would be, number one, an exciting pitcher to go and get. As I said, high-octane guy that was over 100 miles per hour. As of late, he hasn't been himself, but I think Matt Blake could potentially fix him. But that's just my opinion. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments. Is this final suggestion freaking crazy? Let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care.